Thanks, Buhle. The death toll in KwaZulu-Natal has risen to 398 people, while 27 others are still missing. Over the past couple of days, we've seen the most harrowing scenes and heard the most heartbreaking stories as victims and survivors of the floods detail what they had to endure. Communities continue to pick up the pieces as many are left displaced, some struck by grief as they witness loved ones perish, some even before them, and parents desperately searching for their missing children. What kinds of trauma do those left to pick up the pieces to a life once known, and what kinds of psychological interventions will they need once the dust settles? That's if it ever does. Counseling psychologist Tolinhlanhla Dlamini Ngcoya gives us some insights. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, the amount of devastation we have witnessed and had to endure as a country, I cannot even begin to imagine what the victims of these deadly floods are going through. Let's talk about perhaps your assessment as we listen to these heartbreaking stories and we hear residents speak of the hard impact of mudslides that resulted in a house going down, crumbling in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, good morning, Paul and the listeners. Sure, it is very sad. I mean, we can't even explain how one needs to feel at this point. And I know we're now talking about the psychological impact and how we can assist. But at this point, you know, when you're coming from an academic side of view and you think, okay, there's going to be 7 steps of grieving, there's going to be this, and you go through the coping mechanism, none of it makes sense at this point. And that is the reality, because everything is displaced. Even, you know, when you're supposed to be saying to a person, maybe you need to stay at home, stay safe, you know, somebody needs to attend to you. At this point, none of that is possible, because remember, we're talking about the whole village is washed away. There's no home to be sitting in. There's no home to be grieving. Our own mourning system as maybe Africans, where you be sitting down on the mattress where people come in and send their condolences, that's not possible. People are out there trying to dig, trying to look in the rivers, trying to find their loved ones. So at this point, I think the main people that we need to be speaking to is us, the people that are bystanders. How then do we assist the people that are directly affected?
And that's a great question, because we've seen some help on the ground coming in, but one cannot forget what the victims have spoken to. I mean, one woman spoke about how she continues to hear sounds as if the loud banging of a wall collapsing, and really the anxiety that she experiences as she sits in a shelter house, saying that she has nothing. And when she says she has nothing, she means absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing, yeah. So this is why I say now things have changed. And when we talk about nothing, at some points we'll be talking about my house, you know, I don't have house or material belongings. Now we're talking about when a person says nothing, they mean their soul is gone. And I remember one of the producers was saying, Guti, it is strange that some people, when you see them maybe carrying their lifeless loved ones' bodies, they seem to be able to take interviews with no emotions involved. But at this point, this is the only survival that people can hold on to. You sort of go in a denial or just avoidance kind of coping mechanism, so that you can survive, so that you can see the tomorrow. Because at this point, logic, education, you know, all the money, nothing can assist the person in need at this point. All they need to do is just keep strong and survive. And even that, the word strong, what does it mean? You know, it even gets to a point where when you meet these people, what do you say? You know, do you say, Kuzodlula, it's going to be okay? How? You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is important for now, from a psychological point of view, is to take a non-knowing stance where you just stand on the other side and let the person be the experts of their own experience. They are the only ones that know what it feels like. They are the only ones that know what is going on through their bodies, through their minds. So you don't come through and say, I understand that you can, and maybe at least say, I cannot imagine what you're going through, because there's no way I can understand and there's no way I can know what it's like to have 6 members of your family still underground up until today, and you have to dig with your own fingers and hands to try and get through to them.
And, you know, as we listened to people speak about digging and putting their loved ones in body bags and running to rescue them and, you know, survival modes and speaking with no emotions but very composed, with some sense of acceptance, but with a lot of without much emotion. What then do you imagine to be the after effects as soon as the dust settles and people start moving away to rebuild their own lives? You make mention of the African context of mourning, where people come for an entire week and comfort you, but it's not the case in this instance. What happens with the after effects in terms of illnesses and you know, any diseases and the after effects of the horrors and trauma?
So, I need to just maybe remind us all that we've just come from a very traumatic experience of COVID. We've lost our loved ones and buried them in plastics and all of that. The very same family members, some of them are still going through that complicated grief. They're still trying. So when I did an interview 2 years ago, it was a thing of 2 years later or even a year later, we're only going to be starting to dealing with the post-trauma of what has happened with the grieving and the bereavement of our loved ones through COVID. So now we haven't dealt with that still, and now we have this major traumatic event that is coming through. So this is another complicated grief that is prolonged even further. And I just want to put it out there that not everyone reacts the same psychologically. Some people, if they're going to take forever to recover from this, some people will never be the same cognitively and otherwise. Their behavior will never be the same. Their human self will never come back to normality. So that is expected. Whereas some people have a stronger resilience ability, so they will be able to kick back into action and be okay. So at this point, what I want to say is we need to treat each case by case and also just understand each individual, allow them to give them space to actually vent out, to actually speak out and actually tell us what is it that they need. And that is when we can come through. And I'm cognizant of the fact that some people will be so much deep into depression that they won't know how to communicate those things. So that's where the family and the friends and everyone else comes in to say, you're watching out for the symptoms that are making this person different from who they were before this event, and you start pointing those out to them, kindly so that then they can say, you know, how and where we can find assistance for them.
Yes, and that's a very important part of our conversation. How and where can people find assistance, whether it's a phone call away and trying to desperately cope in an unprecedented time?
So we're not going to shy away from the fact that most people that are affected right now, it's people that are coming from poverty, more disadvantaged areas where some of it's shacks, some of it is, so those people don't have medical aids. So in any case, access to mental health will then mean government coming in to assist. In this case, these people are also displaced. They are in different halls. They're in places where we don't know where else or where to access them. That's where I plead to the government to come in and assist in sending help through where people are, because it's going to be difficult now. I mean, if your whole house has been washed away with all your belongings, it means even you don't have any money, you don't have any access to transport, the roads are dislocated, you can't even go to clinics. We saw some of the clinics were washed away. So we need, really plead that assistance gets where the people are. And also be the assistance that is aligned with what people are going through. And also, we do know that currently, even having network, the fact that I'm on Zoom now means how much privileged that I am, that I can be on. I have access to network. I'm in the house. I have electricity. Some people, most of these people that are affected, do not have electricity, do not have network. So we can't even they don't have phones. They don't have water. So the basic needs are not taken care of. So it's far-fetched for us to say they can pick up the phone or get in the car and go anywhere. I think we had the Minister of Health just now saying the outpatient rate is less than expected because people are not going to hospital. The need right now is to find a family rather than going to sit on the benches and waiting for help. Right now, people are going through guilt. Why am I still alive? Why didn't I die instead of my children?
Absolutely. Some really heartbreaking questions there. Counseling psychologist Tulintlanhla Dlamini Moya just trying to make sense of the psychological modeling of those who have experienced the traumatic, deadly floods in KwaZulu-Natal, losing loved ones, losing belongings, and still searching for some loved ones.